This episode brought to you by W Energy Drinks. Link for discount in the description down below.
Well, this video is going to be controversial no matter what. Hey guys, Galactic Knight here. Well, I think we all know what the worst movie of 2026 is. That's right, the recent version of the classic tale Animal Farm.
Despite having a strong premise and a stellar voice cast, it was an official bomb at the box office, pissing off both critics and audiences.
Now, how could that happen when other adaptations work so well? Like
Artemis Fowl, The Great Gatsby, and of course the memorable movies of Dr. Seuss.
Now pucker up and kiss it, Whoville! Dirty hoe.
I think I'm starting to notice a pattern.
In some respects, adapting a book to a film is a tough challenge to work with. Filmmakers have to cut massive amounts of content to fit a standard 2-hour runtime, fundamentally altering the story's pacing. Some parts have to be taken out, which includes narratives, plot lines, and sometimes even characters, resulting with the authors of the original source materials to hate the film adaptations, whether the movie was a success or not.
Even Stephen King and Roald Dahl hated the film versions of The Shining and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Mostly due to the main characters of both movies. Stephen King hated how Jack was already mad from the start, rather than a well-intended man gradually corrupted by an evil hotel. And Roald Dahl despised Gene Wilder's casting and was furious that the story shifted his focus from the book's hero Charlie Bucket to Willy Wonka.
But that hasn't stopped filmmakers from trying.
Basically, more film adaptations of books appear more and more in Hollywood, becoming timeless classics in their own rights. Movies like Jurassic Park and Planet of the Apes became staples of sci-fi. The Lord of the Rings trilogy won plenty of Oscars despite being an adaptation of a fantasy novel. And of course, Walt Disney has made timeless anime classics from classic stories. The first time. The second time was just lazy copy and paste.
With that said, people were upset about different adaptations.
Politically, on the ones based on literature or remakes of other properties, basically due to how modern they are and how far off the source material.
But I guess I should explain what modernizing a story means.
Modernizing classic stories involves taking universal themes, tropes, or narrative structures from timeless literature and updating them from contemporary audiences. This can mean translating the plot to a modern setting or altering character perspectives. It doesn't just try to replace the original, but they can highlight fundamental themes such as social pressures, the struggles for identity, or class conflict. Most of the time remains highly relevant today. It allows the story to function as both a nod to the past and a commentary on the present.
So we witness over time there's a right way and a wrong way to do this.
Because there is a technique to do modernization correctly and to make it successful and timeless.
First of all, you have to make the story relatable.
Stripping away archaic language and customs, making universal struggles such as coming of age, love, or class divides accessibility to today's readers. I feel like a good comparison to do it well would be West Side Story and 10 Things I Hate About You. We don't know if we said the exact words of Shakespeare in a modern time period, it would just feel out of place.
Put up thy sword, or manage to depart these men with me.
But strangely keeping the story the same, but with moving the setting to a modern language, helps translate the American setting while still discussing teen dating, dynamics, rebellion, star-crossed romance, and social status.
The second way is to give the story a new perspective,
allowing creators to give a voice to marginalized or background characters.
For example, Shrek is basically a retelling of classic fairy tales.
Taking what usually is the bad guy, say an ogre, and turning him into the hero. Other properties like Warm Bodies, The Walking Dead, and even the webcomic Lore Olympus are adaptations, but the spin is that the main characters are the ones you usually don't see as the main character.
You could probably put Sons of Anarchy and You on there as well.
Again, having characters usually as the villains be the main characters.
The third way to do it is by still representing the source material, but just blending different genres.
taking a familiar story and adding new, modern twists like incorporating fantasy, sci-fi, or supernatural elements. Like other Disney classics, The Lion King animated loosely reimagines the plot, themes, and character portrayals of Hamlet in an animal kingdom. Clueless is a 1990s update of Jane Austen's 1815 novel Emma, replacing Regency-era rural England with a wealthy Beverly Hills high school. Shows like Sherlock and Empire kept the plot and characters' personalities the same, just taking place in a modern setting with modern technology. And of course, games like Persona 5 and Wolf Among Us take characters from literacy classics and put them in a modern premise.
So that's the right way to do it, but what's the wrong way to do it?
A bad modernization of a classic story prioritizes a specific aesthetic over thematic integrity. It happens when creators simply swap swords for smartphones without asking why the original story matters, resulting in lazy brand name cash grabs that alienate fans and miss the core message entirely.
For example,
when the conflict rallies heavily on older technologies like letters or a single landline, keeping the exact same sequence of events while characters have smartphones makes the whole story feel contrived or entirely broken.
you don't want the audience to keep saying, why doesn't she just text him?
It can be very distracting at times, especially when telling the narrative.
The second way to do this wrong is forcing 21st century morals into historical settings.
While attempting to correct problematic themes, some modernizations strip away the historical context that gave the original its bite. Creators will sometimes shoehorn modern identity politics and pronoun circles into the 1800s, or remove historical struggles regarding race or class. We've also seen Disney do this in a lot of their remakes, making their main characters more like generic, bland role models than actual characters.
I'm against them.
But you're not properly dressed.
Who's to say what is proper?
Do you know how to work a ship?
Disney did this again in Artemis Fowl, stripping away Artemis's edge and turning him into a generic hero child.
Good to know.
The third way to do this wrong is weirdly enough being too dark and gritty.
Don't get me wrong, you can make a story dark and gritty. Like I said, directors like Tim Burton, Del Toro, Stanley Kubrick, and Barry Sonnenfeld have done that well most of the time. But applying the dark, bleak, and gritty brush of everything, especially children's classics, often portrays the source material's spirit. The movie Cats director Tom Hooper utilized modern uncanny digital fur technology and added street-level plot points that never suited the stage play's abstract, theatrical, and dance-driven nature. The result is considered one of the most notoriously jarring and visually bizarre modern adaptations in cinema history. And to bring up Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland again, they've shown stuff I'm surprised people would call this
A family picture.
Plus, the Nutcracker in 3D definitely is too dark to watch in front of children.
And let's be honest, the worst way to modernize a story is to rely on obnoxious pop culture references.
It's when a poor adaptation leans on transient internet slang and trends to appear hip, forcing characters to drop modern buzzwords, dance, or endlessly reference contemporary media. Animal Farm 2025, despite having a strong premise and a stellar voice cast, with Woody Harrelson as Boxer and Seth Rogen as Napoleon, which already sounds like a bad casting choice if you read the original book.
Again, noticing another pattern with these movies. Maybe we can get a Donkey Kong movie in the future to fix that.
The film distractedly shifts from serious political warnings to juvenile slapstick, alienating both audience and children. 2013's The Great Gatsby injected the period piece with a hyper-modern, flashing aesthetic and contemporary hip-hop soundtrack. While visually distinctive, the approach was widely criticized by literary reviewers for favorably gaudy spectacle and melodrama over the subtle, tragic cynicism of the source material. And then there's the Dr. Seuss movies.
What else is there to say?
Inappropriate adult jokes, modern references, and of course, missing the moral of the original books.
People are lying.
So yeah, you can see why people debate whether or not to modernize these timeless classics. But to be honest, some of the parts in these stories can be either weird, stupid, or downright offensive.
Like, in the original story of the Iron Giant had a villain that was a giant dragon from outer space. that probably wouldn't work in the movie that took place in the 1950s. Or the original ending to Carrie had a meteor shower.
It was better the way he wrote it.
Hell, the original origin story of Iron Man took place during the Vietnam War. If the movie did that, it would have been the Marvel equivalent of Breakfast at Tiffany's.
And no, I do not want to show a pic of that.
So in some cases, we do need to modernize these stories as long as it doesn't take away or distract from the plot. And hopefully more and more writers can realize how to modernize stories that would become classics in the future.
Let's have no one do that again.
May God strike me down if I'm wrong. I'm Galactic Knight, and... I gotta stop giving him a reason.